Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as she travels the vortex. Grab your walk. It's time for some pan-fried Sontarans in episode 506. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
We walk
Hungry?
it for you.
We're gonna walk right out of here.
It's time to walk and roll.
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Ooh, they on? Not bad.
That about sums it up.
Somebody's tired.
Always.
Did you guys do anything this week?
We actually went to the movies.
We did too.
Went and saw Eternals.
So did we.
What'd you think?
I loved it. It's not without its problems. It's got some issues. I don't think we can talk too much about it because Sean hasn't seen all of it. But it's
through a bizarre series of circumstances beyond my control.
That probably pains you too to have to walk out of that.
Oh, well, Mel even kind of gave me the, do you just want to stay and I'll go and pick her up? And I could tell she wasn't really thrilled with that option. And I thought about it very briefly, and then it was like, no, let's just bolt and we'll make another attempt at this. We picked the wrong time to go see this movie. Didn't realize it was as long as it was, and then realized we had to go pick up Shai from the bus stop. So we left before the end.
But again, it's not without its problems. It's a very ambitious film that I think there were some things that could have been changed about it. I think the deviants probably could have been redone a little bit, and I don't think there was any reason, although it was a nice fan nod for those of us that know who he is and who he's going to be, the Dane Whitman character. But it was really useless because they either should have had Dane be our POV and had him go with them, although then I wouldn't have gotten Kingu's valet, which I absolutely loved, was a great part of the movie.
Yeah.
But he ended up being our surrogate POV for a good chunk of the film. And so I think they could have either had Dane Whitman go and be that POV, or have him go and be that POV, the valet go and be the POV, and then do away with the Whitman character. But I was jazzed because of some of the things they did with Whitman, but I can't disclose any further on that. So,
Yeah, I mean, he kind of served as the emotional anchor a little bit and the, part of why Circe loves Earth so much aspect of things. And it did feel a lot like he was there for future developments.
yeah.
Like this is just a small piece of the beginning of his storyline.
Yeah.
My biggest complaint with it is probably that it just feels a little overstuffed.
That is its
a
other
little
issue.
too many characters. I think it could have been an absolutely fantastic miniseries. Really spending each time with each individual Eternal, digging into it. I think that would have been really cool. But that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
I didn't have a whole lot of niggles or complaints with it. It's different than your standard Marvel movie, and that's not a bad thing. It's nice to have something a little different. And I think a lot of either the critics were hoping for something super drastically different, which this is not super drastically different, or they were hoping to have a standard Marvel movie, which it's not that either. It's somewhere in between, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's what I found. That's what I found interesting about it is it feels like it doesn't feel as much like a Marvel movie, but it still hits a lot of the same beats that Marvel films hit. And so I think you're right. It sort of lands somewhere in the middle.
And there's a lot of long sections there's a lot of sections of talking, info dump. There's a lot of long sections where there's no talking and just kind of exploring the emotions with the characters and having the actors emote, where Marvel movies don't tend to do that a lot. They tend to,
less talk
about their feelings and then go to action as opposed to showing us their feelings.
Right. And I think that was a lot of Chloe Zhao's influence, I think, on the film.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Without getting too far into the weeds, since I didn't see all of it, if I were to make a comparison, I would say in a way it's similar to the new Dune, in that it is a very big, sprawling story, stuffed full of characters. There's a ton of world building backstory that's going on for them. But with Dune, I was never bored. Now, maybe that's because I've read the source material now, whereas with the Eternals, I'm coming into this completely fresh and I don't know anything about any of these characters. But I found my attention drifting, and I found that it just wasn't holding me. Maybe I will have a different opinion once I see all of it. And like I said, we're going to go back and check it out and see it in a fresh frame of mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to try. I didn't have any frame of reference for any of the characters, and I was never bored through any of it.
And I came at it from a different perspective. I had never read any of the Eternals comics back when I used to read comics. But I, other than whenever, one of the Eternals would cross over into, or show up in another book or title that I did read. But I did just recently go back and pick up the Jack Kirby run, the original run. And it's not for everybody. I didn't quite enjoy it. And so I was a little apprehensive with this film. Now, a lot of the stuff they borrowed in this film, they borrowed from ideas, I think, from the Gaiman run and the more recent Kieran Gillen run that's been done in the comics. So, like, some of the style and design and the concepts were mostly pulled from that, but they kept true to a lot of the ideals in the Kirby run. And I was really apprehensive because I thought, I don't know how they're going to pull this off, just based on the stuff I'd read by Kirby. I hadn't read any of the newer stuff. And when I got in there and I realized, oh, okay, you guys really did a good job of keeping the spirit of these characters, but making, enough logical changes to make it fit in the MCU. So I came to it with that as well. I was like, okay, maybe my enjoyment was affected by the fact that I wasn't sure they could pull it off, and then for me they did. So
sure, I get you. Yeah, I'm still looking forward to seeing it so that I can.
How far did you get into it?
I hesitate to say, but they had just done the reveal of the Superman styled.
Okay.
The Icarus reveal?
Icarus reveal. There you go.
Gotcha. Enough said.
Yep. I had issues with Richard Madden in the movie up until that point. I was not impressed by him. I did not think he was doing a good job. And then that happened, and it flipped me on him.
I had read, or actually a podcast that I listened to, somebody had pointed out that Ned Stark in the beginning of Game of Thrones tells Jon Snow, the next time I see you, you'll be all dressed in black. And in this, when Icarus shows up in London with Cersei and Dane and Sprite, Dane is wearing black. All black. And I thought, surely that's just coincidental. They didn't do that on purpose.
Maybe.
It'd be nice if they did.
Yeah. Did you guys watch anything else? I watched the Sparks Brothers documentary that Edgar Wright did. And this was one of those ones that I'd been seeing the previews for this movie. And I kept thinking, this is a mockumentary. It's got to be a mockumentary. I mean, the way that the trailer's put together, I thought they got a bunch of guys together and said, hey, pretend this band was a band. And because I had never heard of them. Well, I thought I'd never heard of them. But I thought, I have never heard of these guys. How have I been around for almost 50 years and never heard of these guys whose careers spanned my entire lifetime? And it wasn't until I sat down and started watching the documentary that I went, oh, that's who that's by. Oh, that song, yeah, I used to, because back in the day, I used to do, I was really into new wave in the 80s, and I was into kind of, alternative 120 minutes type stuff, alternative.
Well, back in your breakdance days.
Well, no, this was post breakdance days, but I used to be into new wave heavy, and there were 2 or 3 songs in there that I was like, oh my gosh, these used to be new wave staples when I was a kid. And I totally I didn't put Sparks together. I'm not even sure I knew that the songs were by Sparks. And so, but the movie is terrific. It's such a neat, interesting examination of their resilience through the years and how they continued to reinvent themselves without compromising any of their music throughout all of the years. And if you haven't got a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. It's so well crafted. It's so well done. And they're just two very, very interesting gentlemen. And not as what do I want to say, unique or not as strange as the trailer makes them out to be.
The trailer definitely makes it seem like they're kind of cut from the same cloth as They Might Be Giants and Weird Al. That they're almost more of a parody band. And there is an element of that, I think, to their music. But I kind of, was in the same boat. I had no idea who these people were. And then somewhere a quarter of the way through it, they did one of the albums and the song came up from that album. And I went, oh, I think I have heard of that one. But I was totally, I spent a lot of time on my phone during the documentary Googling, is this a real band? Because I'm still not sold. I kind of feel like, it's Edgar Wright. You're pulling one over on me, right?
Right.
This is a VH1 staple that just never aired or something. But
no, they're real.
But now I'm intrigued and I'm ready to go and sink a ton of money into Sparks albums. I also watched an Edgar Wright film. I went and saw the Last Night in Soho. I guess it's just Last Night in Soho, starring
11th
Keith's
Doctor
favorite,
Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. It is an interesting film. It's gorgeous. The visuals in this film are Edgar Wright dialed up to 11. It's really kind of unparalleled how well it's put together in that regard. And it's this very stylistically cool mystery that has some almost paranormal horror elements to it. Unfortunately, the paranormal horror elements, it kind of almost felt like that was a different film. Like, it's just kind of a standard horror movie. And what they were doing was far more interesting than the standard horror film. And so that part of it didn't quite mesh for me. I still really, really enjoyed it. I know it's apparently kind of divisive among the people that I've seen some of the reviews for, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was just really, really well done. And Matt Smith was great. He's still Matt Smith, though.
He's always Matt Smith.
I had to laugh. There's a one scene in a nightclub where they dance. And he comes out and he's got almost a martini in one hand, a lit cigarette in the other. And I really half expected to see Drunken Giraffe, but it was a different variation, so it wasn't quite there. But
I watched, went and saw Venom: Let There Be Carnage again. Enjoyed it again the second time.
That's just such a fun bonkers movie.
It's a fun bonkers movie. That's it. I started reading the Hawkeye run, and I can't remember who the guy that kind of was the book runner on that, but the Hawkeye run that inspired the upcoming TV series. Some of the elements have been lifted from it, and it is really good. I'm only about a third of the way through it. I picked up the trade paperback, which collects everything, and it collects a few things in and around it too. Some Young Avenger stuff, and because it sets up the Kate Bishop stuff in there, and then but mostly I think it was a 9-issue series that they did, and then I think there's some aftermath stuff at the end that's part of it as well. But it is so good. The 9-issue series especially is really, really well done, really well written. So I think that's it. I downloaded a paperback from Kindle that I bought. That's the Spider-Verse, the whole Spider-Verse story. So I plan to read that before a certain date in December.
Coming up on it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
Anyway, did you guys do anything else other than watch a new episode of Doctor Who?
Oh, we started Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh, how is that?
It is wonderful. It's the new computer animated, kind of directed at kids Nickelodeon Star Trek show. Mm-hmm. And the first episode almost feels a little more Star Wars-y. Because there's kind of a lot of swashbuckling laser play and droids. but then it ends with a hook that kind of firmly cements it into the Star Trek universe. And the plot of this thing is that there's a group of youngsters in a far quadrant of the galaxy that find a starship and escape, abscond with it. And there's a holographic Janeway program that is voiced by Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah.
Who is kind of giving them pointers
on how to hijack a starship.
Well, they tell her that they are cadets, and she's like, "Oh, well, then you know all about how to do this, right?" And they're like, "Maybe you could go over it again for us." And she, a digital cup of coffee materializes in her hand, and she's standing there on the bridge. And it's just kind of like, I kind of have forgotten how much I missed Janeway. So, but it is really good so far. I mean, like I said, the first episode's kind of a two-parter because it's an extra double length. And then, so technically we've seen 3 episodes of it now, but it is really well done.
Yeah, I saw some ads for it and thought it looked enjoyable. All right,
but no, other than that, no.
Should we move on to review then?
Chapter 2, War of the Sontarans. During the Crimean War, the Doctor discovers the British army fighting a brutal alien army of Sontarans, and Yaz and Dan are thrown deeper into a battle for survival. What is the Temple of Atropos? Who are the Mori?
I expected a third.
Yeah, I did too. It didn't sound like it was going to just end there.
Just 2 questions.
Dun, dun, dun!
Oh, me too. I absolutely loved this episode. And it's so good. If it suffers from anything, it suffers from maybe leaning too much into the temple stuff, but it didn't go far enough that I was turned off by it, thinking, okay, I guess what I mean is I wanted more of the Sontaran story, although we got a good chunk of it. Don't get me wrong. They focused on it, but I really kind of was feeling like, let's just focus on this and let's keep Dan and Yaz and the Doctor together for a little bit so we can kind of build a dynamic with them, because we have a dynamic between the Doctor and Yaz, but we really haven't kind of learned much about Dan yet and how he's going to work in this little the group. And so I was a little disappointed that they all got separated again. It just felt like one of those, okay, we've got to give people stuff to do, and they do it well. And I think Yaz gets an arc here, not enough. I'm still wanting more Yaz, but Dan certainly gets an arc, and I absolutely loved his parents. They were so funny, so good. I loved them.
And I continue to like Dan a lot.
Yeah, too. I do too. He's so cool.
We didn't mention last week about his bigger on the inside moment, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, different take on the inside.
Obviously. I can see that.
But yeah, I was when we dispatched, or we ended the story of the Sontarans, and the Sontarans were dispatched from both locations in time. I sort of thought that was going to be the end. That's where everything would wrap up, and there maybe be a little, a bit of a cliffhanger. How are we going to get everybody back together, kind of thing. I did not expect everybody to end up at the temple and them to have another 15 minutes of that story starting. So that was, again, I wasn't put off by it, but I kind of felt like we didn't need that because you didn't give me much happening there other than this, things broken, these quantum locked keepers of time. That's another thing that I'm a little hesitant, a little weary. I like the concept of the planet time and the Temple of Atropos, but how many things do we have that are necessary to regulate time? I mean, we've got keys to time. We've got the Black Guardian, the White Guardian. We've got for the balance. We've got all of this stuff that, and then we've got like carnivores or not carnivores, vortivore, whatever they're called, and vortisaurs. That's it, and reapers. Yeah, reapers.
Yeah, reapers.
That basically are time exterminating. Fixing. I don't know. There's
paradox feeders.
It just seems like there's so many of these really large scale hey, oh no, time doesn't work this way. This is the actual keeper time, or no, this is the actual mechanism which time runs through. I feel like we're getting a lot of that, but I'm just going to sit back and kind of let that go and enjoy that ride.
Yeah, it felt a little bit more kind of like the setup for, okay, this is going to be part of the bigger ongoing Flux story aspect of things.
Yeah.
And as part of the establishment, I kind of expect a explanation or headcanon eventually of, well, this was established because Gallifrey's gone sort of situation.
Yeah, I guess so. I was about to say, no, it's not. It came back. But yeah, then it was
now it's gone
destroyed
again
by the Master. I had forgotten about that. I'll be interested to see where they go with that. So,
this episode made me very angry.
Why?
Because
in a good way or a bad way?
Well, both. This is possibly the best episode of Jodie's run. It is that good. It is, despite the fact that it's part of a larger whole. The story itself was exciting. The companion dynamics worked. There was enough for people to do, despite the fact that it's really stuffed with characters. That we have a guest star of the week, come in with the Doctor, and that we have Dan doing his thing with his parents, and we have Yaz meeting up with the new guy, whatever his name is. Yeah, no, it's not Vinder.
Not Grey Worm.
Not Grey Worm. Yes,
not Grey Worm. So there's a lot going on in this episode, and yet I think the added length helped that out immensely with being able to tell the story. I didn't realize how much I missed Sontarans. Just seeing that, and quite honestly, the old school makeup worked so well for me. I don't, because I really enjoyed the redesign. I thought to myself, oh, if you're going to take a classic monster and bring them back, that's the way to do it. They look great. But the new one, or the old ones, didn't look out of place at all on the show, which was
agree.
Super impressive.
Well, and they're not even so much. They're almost a new design on the old design, because they don't have like the nasty whiskery stuff, and they're a little more polished, but they still have that classic Sontaran look.
Yeah, and no ear hair, as squat and squished that the new versions had too.
Yeah,
and we still got Dan Starkey, so that was a yay moment. And then you sold it. I mean, quite honestly, you had me at hello, because you put a Sontaran on a horse. That was like Planet of the Apes right there. That was. Yep. I don't care what you do with the rest of this episode. I am on board. I am here for this. So it was so.
And then the later revelation that he chose the Crimean War just because he wanted to be on a horse.
Yeah, there's so much. You take that moment and defang it. I loved it. It was great. But so it had all of that, and then I thought to myself, will the real Chris Chibnall please stand up? Because if you're capable of writing something like this, where have you been the last 2 years? It made me furious that Jodie had been subjected to such subpar writing for so much of her run, when this was waiting in the wings, that we could have had more like this. And it was, I don't know, it was just really frustrating. But I'm trying to focus on the positives.
I tell you, though, Sean, Chibnall has not written a good chunk of the series, and I've been saying all along that it's not his writing, it's him not being able to rail in his writers. That's the problem.
Or commit to rewriting.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Or not having the time to do the rewriting.
Obviously RTD and Stephen Moffat tinkered with probably all of the scripts that came in.
That's just it. He's playing showrunner. He's not playing script editor. Where in the past we've had two showrunners and producers that have also acted as script editors as well. And I just don't think Chibnall was doing that. And I think that is to his fault and to his detriment. But I just get so frustrated when people blame his writing when he's written some good stuff. Some of the stuff he's written Rosa was his. I mean, it's just those are the good stories are his. Anyway, I'll stop. I'll get off my
And
soapbox.
I think I don't know about all of his previous shows, but I know at least Broadchurch, he wrote every single episode.
Yeah. Spyfall, another 2-parter that he wrote. We all enjoyed that one.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
No, like I said, it's just I'll blame Chibnall the showrunner then, because it's like, well, why are you have one job? It has many hats, but you have one job, and that's put out a good show. And if you're getting writers that are turning in subpar work, you need new writers. That's your job as the showrunner to say, you know what, this isn't working. And sometimes you step in and rewrite it, and some you can the episode and come up with something else. I understand there's time limitations and budgets and on and on and on. There's many moving parts to the show, especially a show that's as complicated as Doctor Who is. But this to me is him firing on all cylinders and doing it right. Mm-hmm. So that to me was just super impressive. I thought the performances across the board were great. Again, the makeup and effects were just phenomenal. All the guest star stuff worked really well. I have a theory that I would be curious to know what you guys think. I believe, based on this temple of whatever it is,
Atropos.
Temple of the Atropos. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the fat babies?
Atropos. Like atrophy, but Atropos.
Ah, okay. I think my theory is that we've plugged the companions in as temporary placeholders for these things, and that they are holding back the natural flow of time. I think the swarm, I think, is in some way time embodied. I think that's what they meant by when they referred to the Doctor and our constant battle.
Sure.
That you have been battling against time for your entire run, and now I finally have caught up with you. I think quite literally is where they're going with it.
Okay.
And I think the temple is meant to be kind of this stopgap prison to prevent Swarm from getting out.
Well, it does
running rampant and causing the entropy of the
They
universe.
specifically say the Mori have been holding back time, preventing it from running wild and causing destruction.
Yeah,
which can be applied to everything you've said.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I think this might suffer just a little bit. I am willing to bet a paycheck that the concept of plugging a companion into this thing was specifically done for the return of Captain Jack. I think that's why we got teased with him so much last season, and that this would have been an ongoing. He would have been a through line through this, and it probably would have culminated. I'm going to go out on a further limb and speculate a little bit. It probably would have culminated in a way in Chibnall taking that piece off the board, that Captain Jack would be stuck taking the place of the Moray, and that he can handle it because he can die and come back and die and come back and die and come back. So there's nothing that time can do to him. With all the power of the universe coursing through him. And that allows Chibnall to kind of remove him for a while so that, the fans aren't going, well, when are you going to bring Captain Jack back? Well, he's busy.
Yeah.
Kind of the same way we wrote K9 out of the Sarah Jane Adventures. He's taking care of the black hole. And of course, when you need him, you could come up with some sort of
So who was the substitute? Thing do you suppose it was Vendor?
I think Vendor was written in as a substitute character.
I would assume Yaz was probably already intended, because that puts a companion in peril, and that gives the Doctor motivation. But yeah, Vendor pretty much is who's this guy kind of thing. So
now, I could be wrong, because we haven't really seen enough of Vendor to know what his role in all this is. But
that's a good hypothesis.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
I also think that I'm a little torn with Yaz. I like the fact that she's got "What would the Doctor do" written on her hand, and then does it, and it works. Are you here to repair?
To a point.
Yes.
But I got shades of Clara in that when she was doing that in her final series with Capaldi. So,
that's the one thing that I kind of feel like I kind of hope that, because I think, not bringing my emotions for Clara into it, but I think Yaz deserves better than just a repeat of that storyline.
Yeah. Again, it just may be a similar enough situation, that it just sparks that. He may not be going that way with it, but I really did have, because I've been a Clara apologist the whole time, and I enjoyed her even when she was doing some of that, but I've even been very vocal about I think that was the wrong direction to take her character. So I hope we don't see that kind of thing happen again.
Well, Clara's character went kind of the wrong way with it. It'd be kind of cool to see them go the right way with it, where Clara's trying to become the Doctor leads to her death. Yaz trying to be like the Doctor, if they took it the opposite direction and made her a hero in her own right that way, that would be kind of a different twist to it, which would make it a little bit more interesting and feel less like a retread. Look, Clara screwed it up and failed. Yaz is succeeding.
That's true. We also have the Walk, which is now my new favorite companion prop.
Did you see the post I put on Facebook? With the somebody else had posted and I shared it.
I was going to ask, did you make that or did you find that?
No, I found that somebody else posted. I think Doctor Who Appreciation Society, I think is where I first got it. I think it was hilarious. The new toy of next year, and it's a walk, and it's in the Doctor Who packaging. I think that's a great Dan's walk. I was really intrigued by. Here there was another thing that bothered me about the episode, and that this was the last thing that I didn't necessarily like. And if this happens again, I think I'll probably I'll probably dog on it a little more next week. But we have this terrific cliffhanger ending last week. Ooh, what's going to happen? How are they going to get out of this? And then we just start the episode with them waking up on the battlefield. And, Jodie, first, we've got the Doctor having the vision of this really cool, rickety, floating house, which a lot of people are already speculating that it's Lungborough, which is the Doctor's house and legacy. But I don't know that Chibnall will go that route, although he did go Morbius Doctors last season, so maybe this will be something he's going to dig up as well. But that there was that, and the visualization of that was very well realized. I enjoyed that, but I was a little frustrated by, that was a quick, easy way of getting us out of the situation. Having the TARDIS, the TARDIS must have gotten us out of it and put us here.
And the fact that the characters didn't even know how they survived.
Yeah, exactly. And so okay. I was a little bit, okay, I'm going to give you a pass this week because you've got a lot of other good stuff that you're setting up, and the rest of the episode was so enjoyable. But I had that moment of, why did you have to cheat there? Show us how we got out of that situation. And if they do it again next week, because they've given us another, how do we get out of this cliffhanger? And if it's just a, snap your fingers and we fixed it in the first minute of the next episode, then I'll have a problem with that. But that, again, that's my only other niggle with that, because I thought it was, again, I've been trying terrific.
I've been trying not too much to try to buy into the multiverse idea of what they're trying to do, but there definitely were hints in that here. And the opening of them just surviving somehow and being on this battleground kind of lends to that also, in the fact that they didn't know where they were, and I think that's part of why the redesign for the Sontarans. I think it's not just because I should, and it's let's see what we can come up with. It feels like there's definitely a reason for the redesign of this Sontaran, and especially when they wind up saying Sontar Ho instead of Sontar Ha.
Yeah,
I wondered if that was maybe to reflect the failure of the subordinate, because they do say Sontar Ha earlier when they're marching into battle, like it's a normal battle cry. And that this is now an execution. I'm showing you mercy because you failed.
Sontar Ho is probably shame.
Yeah.
Sontar Ha is pride.
Okay.
That's true.
We don't talk about Sontar He. That's just
or Sontar High.
Yeah, that's a whole other kettle of fish there. But there was just so much that worked for me in this episode. And I can even kind of excuse the, get out of jail free card with the cliffhanger. Because that's Doctor Who. We always set up a cliffhanger and then very quickly get out of it in the next episode.
No, but usually
it's
when
a classic
we quickly,
Who thing, not a new Who thing.
But even then, when we quickly get out of it, there's at least most of the time, not always, most of the time we see how it happens, or there's a logical conclusion to it. Now, it may not be as satisfying, and it may not be as epic as the way they got into the situation, but we don't get the just throw them somewhere else and wake up and go, we were rescued off screen. That's not something that happened very often, even in classic Who. Yeah,
and I mean, they did kind of drop the line about, well, the TARDIS, bounced off the flux and got thrown under the shield right at the last second, which apparently is also when the Sontaran fleet came in.
Right.
So that must have been a very busy traffic
way.
Again,
though, that's very hand wavy. So is
hand wavy.
I'll forgive it this week, but
now I will counter with saying the setup for the cliffhanger for this week is whoa.
Yeah.
Because not only do we have the countdown and we're going to do this and this is what's going to happen, and you're expecting the music swell and then fade to black, but we get one. And then I don't remember who says what. And then there's actually the snap. You hear the sound effect at the end of and I was like, oh, you're going to end it there? And then, of course, we get the Next Time on Who trailer, which clearly shows everybody made it out of that.
Right,
it's quite frustrating.
We're
all in a different area.
I'm going to quit watching that silly thing because that happens every time. We've complained about that since New Who came back, but
yeah,
it just... anyway,
but no, I thought there were two really good cliffhangers in this episode. The one right before the stinger for the title sequence, and then the one at the end. I thought both of them were very good, very well done, very effective.
Agreed.
Yes,
I love the callback to Jinx or Lynx. No, Jinx.
Yes,
yeah.
Lynx.
Lynx. Yeah, back to Lynx. Yeah, I like the callback to Lynx from the Time Warrior. That was neat, especially since he is and Keith's multiverse theory aside, I kind of presumed that the Sontarans were because there are several different batches of them, and they've talked about that, and that's why there are variations of the different clones, because they're not all one clone; they're all clones of a clone of the series of clones, and so that's why I've always sort of felt that there were different factions and batches, and so it made sense for this guy to call back Skak. This guy was Skak to call back to Lynx, because I had a feeling they were kind of from the same batch or the same faction or whatever. So that was cool. The other thing that I really liked was I liked that they're addressing now the Doctor is now finally addressing the fact that there's something wrong with the TARDIS, and she's at least verbally said something to the TARDIS that she's going to have to figure out what's going on here. And what I really, really liked was when she tried to go back to the TARDIS to find Yaz and Dan, and there was no door, and she kept walking around. And the reason I like that so much is because that was a really cool concept from one of the Virgin New Adventure novels, which was the first the first Cat's Cradle story arc, Time's Crucible. There is a moment where Ace and the Doctor I think they're at a restaurant or something, and they sense a glitch in time. Something's happening. And so they pursue this silver cat back to the TARDIS, and when they get back to the TARDIS, they where the door should be, it's not. And the Doctor continues to walk around, and in that, it's described that the door keeps shifting to in front of him to the side that he's not on. But that imagery of her walking around really gave me a better imagery of my mind of the Seventh Doctor doing that as well, and walking around and not being able to get in. So I kind of wondered if that was something that might have been, that specific element of it was maybe borrowed from that book, because that was a Mark Platt. That was one of his big kind of high-minded concept books that he wrote for the series. So that was
a cool
neat
way to keep the TARDIS out of action.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was just like, oh, that's very clever, is that it's not just, it fell out of the bottom of the cargo hold and it's floating around in Earth's oceans somewhere. I guess we'll go back and get it later.
She has to deal with what's in front of her in order to go take care of everything else. So a clever way to handle that.
There was a bit of a Green Death callback when General Logan blows the ship up as they're taking off, which also harkened to the Christmas Invasion when Harriet Jones calls Torchwood to blow up the Sycorax ship as it's retreating as well. So that was kind of a nice call to both of those incidences too. That
even a little bit to the Silurians.
Humans are, absolutely. Humans are just crap sometimes.
Man, that Logan guy was just unlikable.
Yeah, he was. But I love the way that the 13th Doctor really handled him and often put him in his place. And I think that was one of those times that I really felt like she had a good handle on how the Doctor would handle somebody like that. I thought that was really, really well done. And the crazy thing about, now I knew Mary Sequel was going to be in this for the last week or two, but the crazy thing about this is I had just a month or so ago read an article on Mary Sequel about who she was and that she, went to the front line because she was disgusted with the fact that there were the people that were injured on the front lines were having to be whisked back behind the lines and miles and miles and miles away from the front lines in order to get any sort of medical treatment. And often the reason that she went out there was because often when they were being transported back, they would die en route. And she decided that she had enough of this, and she was going to go out, and she built Hotel Britain, and she had soldiers help her build Hotel Britain, and that was where she worked out of. And she was the only nurse in the whole place. No one else came out there. I think she actually was a charge under Florence Nightingale. So she was like that was her chain of command. Nightingale was a little higher than her, but yeah, she worked out there by herself. And in fact, she's the reason they believe why, the medics basically she was the birth of the medics on the front line that would have the first line triage and get the wounded basically settled and taken care of so that they could be taken back somewhere else and giving proper medical treatment. So, and it was weird because I just read this article about her and think, oh, this woman's really interesting, and then boom, she pops up in a Doctor Who episode, and I was like, wow, this is really neat.
And they characterized her great. She was
did.
Such a likable and someone to really root for.
Absolutely.
And her and the Doctor had great chemistry together.
And I loved her compassion that she, the general didn't like it, but she had even one of the Sontarans in the back, that had been wounded and was taking care of him. I thought that was kind of neat, showing her compassion for anybody that was hurt, regardless of the fact that there's a war going on.
Much to like.
Yeah.
And what's his face? Carvanista coming back to save the day.
I didn't expect that. I kind of wondered.
Halfway save the day.
I kind of wondered how they were going to get Dan out of that situation, especially when they break communication with the Doctor and the Sontarans realize that he's there. I kind of wondered how they were going to get him out of that situation. So it was a pleasant surprise when Carvanista showed up.
It was such a yay moment. It wasn't just a pleasant surprise. It was I wanted to come off the couch and cheer. Oh, the dog's back! It was.
I love the line. I've still got a human in this fight. You're welcome, idiot.
Yeah.
I love their back and forth.
Yeah.
I would be totally okay if at the end of this, Dan winds up going and traveling the universe with his Wookiee sidekick. Yes, I would be totally okay if Carvanista relocates to Earth and hangs out in the backyard. Get the occasional frisbee. I'd be all right with that too.
Dime store Han Solo and dollar store Chewbacca.
Honestly, I think what I want is I now want a spin-off of their life after Who. But because he would be the ultimate Snoopy. Dan would come in and go, so you want to go toss the old Frisbee around? And he would just be sitting at the table reading the paper and look up at him like, dude, are you serious? Quit insulting me. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. More of these guys, because Dan is such a fun character. You're going to go blow this up. What makes you think I know how to do this?
But then yet he still rolls with it and just goes and does it. Well, and he takes the initiative, with his parents. So
with his parents, even,
I got to go in here and take care of this sort of situation because no one else can. So I'm going to do it.
And to video it all the way in.
Yeah.
We've got a whole generation of companions that have to have galactic long distance. And yet Dan's the first one to use the phone and record vital statistic data with it. And it's
you see how he held the phone too? He held it horizontal.
He held it horizontally.
Correctly.
Yeah.
Just everything Dan did was just raising him in my estimation of the man. Then he did that. It was like, I couldn't love you more.
He's from our era. Had it been Yaz, it had been up and down, so it'd been vertical.
I'm still getting Mad Fraser vibes off Dan. He's very Jamie McCrimmon. I don't know why. I think it's that roll with it. I think it's that same. He's so far out of its depth, but yet we're just gonna. This is the hand I've been dealt.
Yeah, I still didn't quite get that, but
I still don't see it.
You're nuts, I tell you. Put Dan in a kilt.
I love that he was confusing when the doctor kept saying temporal. Or no, it was when he said he heard tempura, and he's like, what do they want with sushi? And the doctor's like, are you sure they didn't say temporal? And he goes, yeah, that's it. The language barrier. It's the same language, and they've got a language barrier. Temporal. What do they want with sushi?
He's from Liverpool. That's like a whole different thing.
All the more fitting that he was running around with a walk.
Yeah.
I think I kind of like what, even though I felt like there was a little too much in this episode, I kind of like where they're going with Swarm and Azure. They're genuinely creepy, and now we've got Passenger, the muscle, looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So I like where we're going with that, because I think their performances are what's really engrossing me. They're genuinely creepy and scary, and they've so far, without having done much, they're very interesting characters, and I like that. Not knowing anything about them, but being very invested in, okay, who are these people? So.
And Swarm in particular is very charismatic without being a scenery chewing villain.
I agree.
He owns whatever scene he's in, which is very impressive, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they included just enough of them in the story to not so much just as a reminder, but it moves the plot forward so much, but it's not so much that it overpowers everything else that happens in the story.
Yeah.
It was just the right balance.
I had something and now I've lost it. My brain derailed.
Well, what are our closing thoughts before we wrap up our review?
I maintain it's probably the best episode of Jodie's era. I had so much fun with this. I laughed. I was on the edge of my seat. The Sontaran battle scenes. I suppose you could nitpick a little bit with the overhead CGI shot, but it's for Doctor Who, that was impressive.
I guess I didn't notice. Was it dodgy?
No, I think
maybe doing an overhead shot as opposed to being down on the ground.
Well, just the fact that they did it in my mind is impressive, because how do you do an army of Sontarans in Doctor Who? I mean, what's they invaded Gallifrey with what, like 6 guys? Yeah. I mean, so, the fact that we got that is kind of like, yeah, this is Sontarans in battle on a horse. Okay.
It was also great having the Sontarans be fairly competent. I mean, if it weren't for, the Doctor, they would have totally succeeded in this plan.
Yeah, we do get a little bit of a comic relief once the walk really comes into play, and just how bonk and they go down.
But, I mean, that's how they were in the classic series too. Yeah. I mean, it's not the amount of comic relief that Stephen Moffat had the Sontarans at a level at by the time we saw them last.
Yeah, no, it wasn't laser grenades and
no.
or acid grenades and laser monkeys, whatever.
And just talking heads because of an invisible tank or whatever they were in.
I'd forgotten about the tank.
These Sontarans were actually menacing, which was nice.
All right, well, shall we throw out our mystery word of the week, our code word of the week?
Code word of the week. Once again, you can get to us on social media and send us the word probic, Probic, as in a probic vent. And that will get you entered as or if you've already entered, it'll get you another entry to win our fabulous prize of epic game show proportions from our friends at Looney Labs, a game, Doctor Who Flux, that we have a copy of to give away to tie in with Doctor Who Flux that's currently on our screens.
One minor correction. Do not reach out to us on social media this time. This time you're going to reach out to us on feedback at travelingthevortex.com.
Oh, that's right. We changed it.
Email us that word or the group of words that we have, or the 2 words that we have so far, and to get entered to win. So, yeah, make sure you send it to feedback at travelingthevortex.com.
I stand corrected.
Well, of course, what do we got coming up with the schedule, Sean?
Well, coming up next on the schedule is more Flux, Once Upon Time. Episode 3 will be out and on our screens next week, and we will be here to review it for you. And I don't know if you guys had seen that they did drop the title for Episode 4.
Oh, I haven't. No, I hadn't seen it.
Yes, I did see that.
Village of the Angels.
Ah.
One would presume.
When I saw the title last week, my first initial thought was, well, you should have had Grammarly check that because you've got it Once Upon Time. And then my second thought was, oh, I think they cleverly did that. And then my third thing was, after I saw the episode this week, I went, oh, that makes much more sense now.
That comma is very important.
Yeah, well, and the fact that the planet's called Time, so it makes more sense now. All right, well, be sure to check out our website, travelingthevortex.com, for updates on this podcast and any new releases. And you can go back there and check out our back catalog if you're so inclined. We have all of our shows posted on there, ones that you may not be able to access because they're old enough on some of the podcast aggregating sites. You can find everything all the way back to day one on our website, travelingthevortex.com. If you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some back into it? You can do that by clicking on that Patreon link on our website and consider supporting us and becoming a patron. Also, please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you do subscribe to this podcast. That helps bump us up in the ratings and the recommendations. And make sure that you join in the conversation on our listeners forum on Facebook. If there's nothing else to touch on this week, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing ya.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.